All right. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Felix Edudakwa. Please do well to subscribe if you are coming here for the first time. Hit on that subscribe button and press on that bell icon you see there. Okay. So today's segment is very special. I want to discuss the issue of Jadon Sancho at Manchester United. You see, there's a player who was signed in the last season of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as he was manager. He came in, he didn't have a very good start in the Premier League. Now, the following season, when Eric Ten Hag took over after 26 appearances, I've got the details of all his performance, in terms of numbers. I'm talking goals and assists primarily because he's a forward line player, and so those are the things that we expect from him. Now, coming to this season, still on last season, there's a player who was struggling in terms of his position because the left wing was taken by Marcus Rashford and he performed exceptionally well. Last season was the biggest, or should I say, the greatest performance that Rashford had ever given to any club side. And for Manchester United, it was one of their season's best in a very long time. So Rashford was scoring the goals, he was getting the assists, and most importantly, he was winning the games for Manchester United. It only had to mean that Manchester United would then tend to have him on the right side. And even on the right side, there was Anthony, who was also brought in by Eric Ten Hag, who was, his manager at Ajax. So it meant that the status of Jadon Sancho had to be changed. So getting in the season, somewhere around the ending part of the season, Jadon Sancho's role even began to change to more of a number 10. So he was playing more centrally, right behind Marcus Rashford, most of the time leading the lines for Manchester United. But then again, too, he could not pick up. His form was still dwindling. There was no way that a club as huge as Manchester United would still make allowance for a player like Jadon Sancho, giving his bad performances, I should say. Because if you look at his numbers are not even good. But then we still had to consider him because he was one of the most expensive players that United had signed in recent time. Talk about Paul Pogba. There's talk about a lot of players. But then on that list, you find Jadon Sancho there. Now, coming down to this season, this is a season that most of us expected, at least for a second season under Eric Ten Hag, a coach who had done so well in his first season. For so many starters in the Premier League, you don't come to the Premier League and you chalk the third position. You don't come to the Premier League and in the first season, you win the Carabao Cup, You don't come to the Premier League in the first attempt to win the Carabao Cup and you place third on the final league log. That's some achievement, if you ask me. And for a manager coming from the Eredivisie, the level of competition and the talkability that you generate is also another thing to discuss another day. But hey, there's a manager who started the season. Things have not been well for him at all. I should say that this is one of the worst starts that I've ever seen a manager had in Manchester United. There's talk about Jose Mourinho. There's talk about Louis van Gaal and the likes. And none of them, if you ask me, none of them had performed such poorly in his first four games in charge in a new season, coming back from the old one. Classical example was Jose Mourinho. His second season was his best season at United. He was second in that season, and he started pretty well. Now, this is a wholesale change team. David Gea is no longer at the club, and now there's Andre Onana. There's this style of play that the coach would like to implement because he had wanted to do that last season, couldn't work out well because the man he had wanted to start the kind of attack he had wanted from the back, David Gea was not doing so well in that role. So basically, in the first two games against Brighton and Brentford, you'd find that he was found wanting. And so the third game, which was against Liverpool, the manager had to revert to a more direct play instead of trying to pass from the back and build the attack right from the defense. So he had to switch it to somewhat of a long ball approach. Now, this season, Jadon Sancho has not played well. I mean, that's a fact, and the numbers will also justify. In fact, in his tenure at Manchester United, he has not performed well. So these are the stats. You watch them and you analyze them critically, and you see that this is not a player that we have not given chances. He has been given a lot of chances to prove his worth, but who knows what's happening to him. Now, the reports coming in currently are that Jadon Sancho is ready to leave Manchester United in January on a temporary basis. So maybe a 6-month loan elsewhere till the season ends. Then he can decide his future properly. Because, of course, there's Euro 2024 ahead. He would like to be in good shape for that competition. But there's also talk about whether or not he will return if he leaves the club in January. Well, we'll leave that to be decided after he leaves in January, though. But then, there's a player who was dropped from the first team when Manchester United was playing against Arsenal on September 3rd. So, more like a 1-month period, there's a player who has not played for Manchester United since September 3rd. And in that game, Manchester United lost to Arsenal by 3-1. He was absent from there. And then Ten Hag came out exclusively to kind of tell the world that he dropped him because he was poor during training. Now, that was when everything started, if you ask me. When the manager came out to publicly announce that Jadon Sancho has not been training well, and so for that matter, he had to drop him out of the squad. The player took to social media, and this post is not new if you have been following Manchester United for a long time now. This is what the player wrote. And for a manager who has been doing well over the past few years, in Netherlands, he has proven himself. When he came to England, at least his first season is something that everybody noted, and noted that this is not somebody who's just coming to play around. He really means business. And so he had to stamp authority on that. And because of that, Sancho has not played for the club since September 3rd. I mean, after he was dropped from that all-important game against Arsenal. Now, after that game, there was Brighton. The club lost 3-1 against Brighton. And of course, after Brighton, it was the first Champions League game against Bayern Munich where Manchester United lost away to Bayern Munich by 4-3. And then after that, they won the only game that started the resurgence of some sort against Burnley at the Turf Moor. And then last weekend against Brentford at the Old Trafford. Last weekend at Brentford, they came back from a goal behind to win against Brentford by 2-1. So this has been the trend. There's a player who you have catch from the squad. I mean, because he's not training well. Now, still, you're not getting the results that you want. So that's causing that more of a dilemma. You know, people are confused. People are asking questions. If it's because of poor training, in his absence, who has really performed? There's Pelistri, there's Garnacho. Those players have not really lived up to the billing. So a lot of questions are asked, especially by sympathizers and friends of Jadon Sancho, those who love to watch him play and all that. Now, after that, he has been banished from the first team. So as it stands now, he's no longer a member of the first team squad. Normally, there are times you see him training with you see him watching the under 18 games and under 21s. Those are the people that people think that as it stands now, because he has decided not to apologize. After that, reports indicated that he and his manager barely speak. So from September 3rd to now, there has not been any communication between them. So this means that there's actually bad blood between them. There's nothing that is going to make the relationship work. And so if he's going out to seek some game time elsewhere, maybe on a temporary basis in January, well, what do you think? I think that basically it will help him. To help him to develop and then to kind of gain his confidence back and to do what Jadon Sancho does best. These are some of the things that I have listed out. Now, the manager has refused to speak to the player because the player would not apologize publicly after coming out to defend himself. Because of this, he wants an exit in January. What do you think? Drop down your comments. I want to see what you think about this situation. And of course, if you have not subscribed to, please do well to subscribe. And I'm bringing you more videos pertaining to this particular subject. And there will be more to add up here. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.